Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Ephemeris podcast. I'm your host, Aphelion, as always, and summer's just about upon us. Feels good. Feels really good. Only means good things when summer comes about, and yeah, I'm just excited for a little bit of free time and independence. So, that's really all I have to say about summer. Because this is the sixth episode of the season, there is no more waiting for Greek astronomy. So that is what we're going to talk about today. It's going to be a bit of a short introduction for sure because we're starting off with, as I think he's the earliest astronomer of the Greek times, and his name is Anaxagoras. And so that is who we're going to be discussing today. I would love to have lengthened the episode with a little bit of his biography and some more kind of context to who this Anaxagoras guy is, but really, the most we know about him is when we read some of the stuff, or really, I should call it the philosophy that he created. So, anyways, let's get straight into it. So, Anaxagoras, Greek philosopher, 5th century BCE roundabout is when you're going to see some of these early Greek astronomers come about. He supposedly abandoned his comfortable lifestyle with an affluent family to study philosophy, so he fled to Athens and he resided there for 20 years, which is where he did all of the notable work that we're going to talk about today. And just a little fun fact, he was arrested and exiled for claiming and asserting that the sun and moon were not gods, but objects. And that was at some point during his life, I don't know when. He thought the sun to be an incandescent stone, quote unquote, and the moon was just a rock. And he was also banished from Athens after being charged with impiety, but that has more to do with politics, I think, and that's definitely not something we're going to get into here. There's not a lot of information on it, anyways, but yeah, he ended up dying a couple of years after leaving Athens, unfortunately, and that's really the end of his biography, really. It's very, very short. We don't know that much about him. I mean, he did live like, what is it now? Wait, 25 centuries ago? I don't know. I'm not able to do math right now, but that's besides the point. Let's begin with his cosmological ideas, and it's a little bit difficult to figure out where to begin, but I think the best place to begin is talking about some of his like metaphysics ideas, because that's gonna lay the foundation for some of the stuff that he says about the cosmos, and even though his kind of the heart of his philosophy is in metaphysics, obviously we want to put a little bit of a focus on cosmology, but we do have to get the metaphysics down. Okay, let's not delay any further. So, Anaxagoras didn't really buy into the idea that the reason behind occurrences in the world had to do with gods, as is pretty obvious because we just mentioned that he got arrested for such claims. During the ancient Greek times, it's reasonable to assume, and I think it's a fact, that a lot of occurrences were believed to be influenced by the gods. Right? We know all about Greek mythology, and you learn about that in like, I don't know, sixth grade, in the U.S. school system. So yeah, you'll know that gods are a really big part of how Greeks used to explain kind of, I guess, astronomical events on Earth, like thunder and lightning and Zeus and Poseidon and all that crap. So, yeah, Anaxagoras did not buy into all of that. And he didn't believe in a transition between existence and non existence, which is quite interesting. We've talked about the ideas of existence and non existence before on the podcast in terms of, how the universe came to be about with the ancient Indians. They believed in, non existence within non existence, and then it unraveled into existence, right? But that's not what Anaxagoras believes in, supposedly. He was believed to have said that everything that is created and destroyed is a unique manifestation of what already exists. And I kind of, the first thing I thought of when I heard that was like, oh yeah, that kind of ties into the idea that we as humans kind of began as a collection of atoms, and when we decompose 6 feet under the ground, we are atoms, right? But I did a little bit of further reading. It turns out that such a presumption is a bit misguided, but personally, I just like to. I think it's I think it's reasonable to think that that kind of ties into the ideas of matter, even though that's apparently not the case. So yeah, everything that is created or destroyed is a matter of perception, from what he said, and we perceive certain things to be quote unquote created or destroyed, even though all they are just a new form of what has already been there. So yeah, in this way, Anaxagoras was more interested in what something was made of out of um, other than like anything else. So a common term that comes up when talking about his philosophy is ingredients. And kind of there's a I think there was a big philosophical debate about the way that he described kind of ingredients becoming like different forms, and it's discussed by some research papers in the 1990s or the 2000s. But honestly, I'm not going to worry about that debate. I think as long as we understand the context, the metaphysical context to his ideas of the universe, I think that's enough. I think that's satisfactory. Um, the last thing I will mention, though, relating to his metaphysical theories, is that Anaxagoras believed in the infinite I'm sorry, I'm struggling to speak. Divisibility of stuff, which is intriguing. So he's like, there is no such thing as smallest, and there is no such thing as largest. No matter what there is that exists, it can be like divided an infinite amount of times. And a great example that kind of helps understand that whole debate is like, can you divide a kernel of rice so many times that is not rice anymore, right? So yeah, anyways, again, that is more metaphysical debate that I'm not going to get into. So let's just move on to the cosmological beliefs, because we've already done enough stalling. So, in terms of the cosmos, he believed that the cosmos began as an unlimited and undisturbed mixture of these ingredients that he speaks of. I believe a lot of the ingredients that he used to talk about was based on the elements: fire, water, wood, and forget what the other one is, but yeah, I believe that's what it was. And so basically, he said, okay, the universe before it began was just an unlimited amount of this stuff, this ingredient, or this kind of it was a sea of ingredients. And he then said that nous, I believe is how you pronounce it, Nous, set the universe into motion. But what is nous? It is meant to represent the mind, according to the way that he explained it. But why would the mind put the universe into motion? That's a bit of a complicated one. I think his interpretation of the mind in this context is not necessarily like, it's not talking about how it's exactly like, our mind as we understand it today. We understand the mind today to be like, a kind of I guess the consciousness that goes inside of our head. And I don't think Anaxagoras was exactly trying to say, okay, the mind that we have in here is what caused the universe. From what I believe, he was like, him describing nous was kind of just making an analogy between how our mind governs our body and how the cosmos is conducted by a similar kind of mind, right? Basically, the essence of the theory is that he believed in a unifying cosmic principle, which was new for the time because, as we talked about, Greeks like to believe that the gods had something to do with everything. And so that's kind of the more significant part about the theory. And I mean, it is important to address that when he described the nous, I mean, that was pretty much the center of a lot of the work that was critiqued or praised by other Greek like philosophers like Aristotle and Plato, because I suppose the story goes that when he began to expand on the idea of nous, it became less of, oh, the mind is the unifying principle, to there's just kind of a mindless mechanism that's going on that's causing some other supplementary things. So yeah, it ended up creating a little bit of problems later on when Anaxagoras explained it, but that was the theory. And the the thing you really got to take away from his theory is that he was really diverting away from theistic principles, and he was more invested in the idea that there was a unifying principle. So yeah, that is that cosmological theory. There's also some other things to be addressed. Uh, because Anaxagoras proposed that the universe was made of unlimited ingredients, he believed the universe would continue to expand like we do today. Pretty neat. Nice part of the theory. Little. It's not really the cherry on top because not everything underneath is quite that perfect, but it's just a cool little add on. He also believed that as the universe continued to expand and fizzle out, the heavier elements would concentrate at the center and the lighter elements would continue to the outskirts, which I believe was kind of his way of creating a little bit of a foundation of what we can call a geocentric model. So he believed all the heavier elements came onto Earth, and that's where you get like ores. And then you have the sun, which is supposedly like hot, fiery metal, right? Which is actually a really, really good prediction because we know that the sun is, it can be, or suns and stars can be metallic, right? So, yeah. He believed the moon to be an earthy lump, and he did not believe that the moon actually had its own brightness. He believed it did come from the sun, which is pretty remarkable, obviously. And it could be by chance, you know. I would say that it's probably best to not believe that it was by chance because there's some other knowledge that he sort of developed, especially the fact that because he made the claim that the moon obtained its brightness from the sun, he was able to predict eclipses and lunar phases accurately given this knowledge. So it doesn't seem like it's by chance, but it could possibly be by chance. I don't know. But yeah, that is pretty much the essence of Anaxagoras. It's definitely a bit of a short introduction to some of the Greek astronomy that is planted in history. I think Anaxagoras' ideas are going to come up later on. From what I can recall, we're going to talk about him when we talk about Epicurus, and hopefully he'll come up in Aristotelian kind of cosmology and astronomy and all of that stuff, because as I mentioned, Aristotle and Plato both praised and critiqued Anaxagoras. So yeah, that is our small little foundation for greater things to come in the season, and I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to this episode. It's definitely a short one. If you have not caught up with all of the other episodes that came out recently, definitely make sure to go listen to those, because those ones are quite interesting and definitely longer than this one. So if you have a little bit of time and you felt like this one was a bit short, perhaps you need to catch up on some earlier episodes, because I know I dropped a double upload and maybe not everybody catch that one. Anyways, if you did enjoy the episode, make sure to leave me a follow if you're listening on Spotify, and drop a subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. If you'd like to share the podcast, go ahead. I would sincerely appreciate that. Any likes, comments that you want to give on YouTube to help the episode get into the algorithm, I would sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate. So yeah, that is all I have for today. I will see you guys next week. Take it easy. Peace.